To you live today to speak about a landmark case that is going to be heard in the Supreme Court, the Mahinda Deshapriya corruption case. Especially in what's happening in the country today, this case is very important for all of us. The outcome of this case can be very important in determining the future of this country. Why do I say that? Before I go on to the details of this case and petition and the motions filed, I'd like to draw your attention to a very important international treaty. Now, this is the UN treaty in relation to anti-corruption, and I would like to draw your attention to some of the remarks that this treaty has, which discusses the importance of avoiding corruption in a country at every level. So this is from the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, and I'm going to quote to you from the foreword. Corruption is an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects on societies. It undermines democracy and the rule of law, leads to violations of human rights, distorts markets, erodes the quality of life, and allows organized crime, terrorism, and other threats to human security to flourish. This evil phenomenon is found in all countries, big and small, rich and poor, but it is in the developing world that its effects are most destructive. Corruption hurts the poor disproportionately by diverting funds intended for development, undermining a government's ability to provide basic services, feeding inequality and injustice, and discouraging foreign aid and investment. Corruption is a key element in economic underperformance and a major obstacle to poverty alleviation and development. I am therefore very happy that we now have a new instrument to address this scourge at the global level. The adoption of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption will send a clear message that the international community is determined to prevent and control corruption. So here we see how important it is to prevent corruption in a country. Now, the case that the Supreme Court has been vested and asked to hear today deals with this very issue of corruption. And today what we hear, the slogan that we hear throughout the country is "Gota, go home, Gota, go home." People are suffering without fear, without medicine, without food even. And there is this huge sense of despair that has taken over the country and a desperate outcry from the people asking for a regime change, asking for the current regime to leave. Gota, go home is what we can hear. So now I would like to talk to you about the Supreme Court case that is going to be heard today in relation to what happened at the last presidential election. This is very, very important because we know with the executive presidency, which is vested with so much power, whoever comes to that position of power can do so much good and so much damage. And what we have seen happening is the latter, to the point where the entire country is now at the mercy of all these aid agencies, the international community, neighboring countries, begging and pleading for support, assistance for survival. So let me take you to the petition that has been filed in the Supreme Court in relation to this matter and explain to you what's happening in that respect. Now, the petition was filed by Mr. Nagananda Kodituaku, who is an activist, a lawyer and an activist in Sri Lanka, the General Secretary of Vinivida Peramuna, and he filed this motion, and I'll give you the details. So, the motion was filed in 2021, and he has named the following parties. First respondent is the Commission to investigate the allegations of bribery and corruption. Second respondent, Iva Vanasundara, Chairman of the Commission. Third respondent is Deepali Vijayasundara, also of the Commission. Respondent 4 is Chandranimal Vakishta of the Commission. Kanishka Vijayaratna is fifth respondent. Sixth respondent is Mahinda Deshapriya. Now, Mahinda Deshapriya as we know, former chairman of the Election Commission and now the chairman of the Delimitation Commission. Seventh respondent is Professor Ratnajeevan Pool, and the eighth respondent is Noeline Smart. Ninth respondent, Sagara Karyavasan. 10th respondent, Chamal Rajpaksha. So, what was the petition about? Now, the petition deals with the requirements, the prerequisites for nomination to contest presidential election in Sri Lanka. And the question is whether the Election Commission and the others involved, the other respondents who have been named in this case, performed their proper duty to prevent corruption in that nomination process. Let's go to the grounds of the petition. I will take you through the grounds one by one for your information and knowledge. So the first issue that is being raised by the first is against the first respondent, which is the commission to investigate allegation of bribery or corruption, and the second respondent, and the third and the fourth respondents, as well as the sixth respondent, who is the election commissioner himself, the former election commissioner himself. And the question is in relation to whether in the manner in which they call the nomination process, there was an attack on the absolute sovereignty of the people, where they have the right to have free and fair elections as per the constitution. Here the petitioner, Mr. Nagananda Kodituaku, says that sovereignty is vested with the people of the Republic of Sri Lanka, which includes their right to elect an executive president and also 196 members of parliament under Articles 3, 4A and 4B of the Constitution. Now that is the starting point of this petition. And then states the following. Here the petitioner, that is Mr. Kodituaku, says that the Election Commissioner is required by Article 103(2) of the Constitution to conduct periodic elections free and fair at all times. This is a constitutional mandate vested in the Commission, and that in this process that happened in 2021, there was a complete violation, a complete breach of those duties vested in the Election Commission. Here, it is clear that every citizen who is qualified to be an elector and not disqualified under Article 91(1)(d), E, F, G shall be qualified to be a prospective candidate for presidential election in the Republic of Sri Lanka. What that means is that under Article 91(1)(d), 13, Roman numeral 13, is that no citizen of another country can be seen to be qualified to be a candidate for the election of office of executive presidency. Now, this was the case until the 20th Amendment to the Constitution took place, which, as we know, happened on the 29th of October 2020. So the question is, was investigate whether the nomination by Gotabaya Rajapaksa was affected by Article 91(1)(d) 13. Now, we go on to see what the evidence in this case is. Now, we clearly see that Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, at the time nomination was called, was still a citizen of the United States of America. And what the evidence suggests is that the Election Commissioner in this regard failed to perform his duty to look into whether the information that was provided by Gotabaya Rajapaksa was in fact true, correct and valid. And what we see is that that investigation did not take place. And the consequences of that was that the nomination was accepted and Gotabaya Rajapaksa then going on to be elected into the role of executive president, and the dire consequences of that as we see today. Now, what we see is that there were allegations about this that was made known to the Election Commission very clearly, that this may very well be the case. We have sworn evidence from several witnesses who can attest to the fact that the Election Commissioner himself was aware of the fact that Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's US citizenship may not have been given up at the time of nomination. So we see that there is a contradiction in the way the law was applied here. Now, we go on to see certain other events that took place around the same time, certain evidence that has now come to light about discussions that took place. And what this means is the court is now under a duty to perform a proper investigation into these facts. Because if there was in fact a breach on the part of the Election Commissioner in performing its constitutional duty of carrying out free and fair election, lawful election, then was in fact a citizen of USA, then it is very clear that the Election Commissioner had breached its duty, and the flow-on effect of the nomination and the election and the appointment of Gotabaya Rajapaksa to the role of executive presidency should now be constitutionally questioned. So we see today how important today's case is to work out these issues, and especially in the context of the constitutional as well as the economic calamity the country faces today, the complete economic collapse as a result of the inept and corrupt rule of the present regime. Now, something else that is also important is in today's Supreme Court hearing, there is going to be a motion that is going to be filed calling upon the court to ensure that the bench that will hear this case is also going to be unbiased and independent. Why is this important? Because we know that in the past several Supreme Court judges have been charged with corruption, and it is really important that in the context of a of an independent hearing to take place in relation to this petition, that those judges who have been charged with corruption should not be allowed to sit on this case. Now, a list of those judges have been filed, and I can give you the list of the judges who have been charged with corruption, who should not be sitting on today's case, or in fact should not be presiding over this matter, in order to ensure that the hearing is going to be an independent one. So we've got Sira J.D. Abru, Priyantha Javardhana, Vijit K. Malalgoda. These are all judges of the Supreme Court. Kesri Pavan, L.T.B. Dehidenia, P. Padman Surasena, Esture Raja, Murthy Fernando. You have all been named as judges who should not be sitting and presiding over this case. So this is really important to ensure that we uphold the law here, that in the context of the supremacy of law being an important doctrine that we need to protect in order to protect basic rights, fundamental rights of the citizens of the country. It's really important that a fair hearing is given to the petitioner here. In the event that such a fair hearing cannot be given to the petitioner, Mr. Nagananda Kodituaku, we can't expect the court to play an independent role. We can't expect a fair outcome. And I think in determining the country's situation, the future in relation to the current calamity, this is a landmark case. The courts can now step in and use this very case to conclude that the election of Gotabaya Rajapaksa to the post of executive president can be voided on the basis that his nomination was unconstitutional. We can use this provision to uphold the rule of law and to make sure that sovereignty of the people's wish is carried out. And I hope that people will rally around this message. I hope that you will all find your voice and support Mr. Nagananda Kodituaku, who is speaking on your behalf, trying to fight for your rights, your choice, your sovereignty in the parliament, in the country, and I hope that you will all rally around him and support him in this very important case. Thank you.